Welcome to the Equipped Agronomy podcast, where we bridge the gap between seeding equipment and agronomy. This is presented to you by Bourgault Industries. My name is Curtis DeGoyer, work as the agronomist here at Bourgault, and I have across the table from me Mr. Jeff Strukoff.
Good day, Curtis. Good to see you again.
Hi, Jeff. It is a good day.
It's a fantastic day.
It's a great day. And it's a great day always when we get to come in, chat equipment, chat agronomy.
What are we going to talk about today?
See how it comes together. Well, this is nothing new per se, and it's something that we've talked about before in the past, but canola trials, seeding rate trials.
Ooh, I like this subject.
We have been, at Bourgault Industries, have been playing around with this subject for many, many years.
Yes.
Many years. And it all stemmed back from when we were playing with singulation to volumetrically metered and comparing, which we may or may not touch in as well today. And this is going to be neat because we got a different perspective on this whole seeding rate trial stuff. Because you, now in retail, would like to increase seeding rates perhaps now.
No, you know what? I'm actually the anti-retail guy on that subject, because at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the customer. And yeah, well, we'll dive into it.
We'll
because
dive into it.
Sometimes seeding heavier, especially specifically for canola, is not necessarily the best thing that you can do.
That's true. So, okay, an overview of the seeding rate trials for anyone who has not followed along or hasn't. We have done a podcast on this before. You can go back and listen. But essentially, we are setting up the canola in our side-by-side trials where we are doing seeding rates of 10 seeds per square foot, which is equivalent to about 5 pounds. And then we do 5 seeds. 5 seeds per square foot, which is 2.5 pounds.
2.5 pounds.
And then we cut that again in half. So now we're down to 2.5.
1.25
seeds. Yeah, 1.25. Yeah. And then it's adjusted slightly depending on the seed size for that year, the TSW, 1,000 seed weight. What have we found in the past? Well, should we go into the past or should we see what you think happened this year first?
Well, I think if you go back and you just like a little bit of a history lesson.
A little bit of history.
When we started this project, it was all geared towards planters. There was a big push to get canola planted with planters. And we wanted to compare planting technology to regular volumetric seeding of canola. But at the time, nobody was really doing a true comparison of actual seeding rates. Everyone just cut the rates in half when they were using a planter, and they kept seeding their canola with the regular rate with the drill that they had. But nobody felt comfortable actually cutting the volumetric seeding rate in half. So we decided that that's what we were going to do. We went a direct comparison. We had the luxury of actually having our own drill that had the XP meters on them.
Yeah, the air planter.
Yeah. So, and we basically used the same tank, but we used the same opener, same fertilizer placement, everything. Like it was, at the time, was the only drill of its kind in the world, really. Like, I think. Yeah,
for dry fertilizer and that comparison, it worked really. It was exact comparison.
Yeah. So anyway,
morphed into just the seeding rate trial. We're going to come back, I think, to singulation just as a. We'll keep that as a teaser.
Okay.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Okay.
But the seeding rate trial, what we found over the years, really at the end of the day, it depended on the year, right? Dry conditions versus wet conditions. Now, Jeff. We're coming into 2026. What do you think the year is going to be like in 2026? Wet or dry?
Just put a guy on the spot right off the bat. Well, going into fall, Curtis. Locally, I would say are sitting really quite well as far as moisture goes for starting off seeding. But we've seen how that's happened before, where maybe it doesn't rain for 6 weeks, and next thing you know, you're dry. But
we have no idea.
It's shooting darts at a dartboard.
So, what does this mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Historically, we've kind of come to the conclusion somewhat that on drier years, lower seeding rates do better, and on wetter years, higher seeding rates do better.
Exactly. 2021, if anyone remembers 2021, very dry year.
And 23, same kind of scenario.
23, Yep, 23. Sorry, I'm looking at the results here as well. 21, 23. And again, when we went up to 10 seeds, so that's 5 pounds, kind of the standard seeding rate, we actually had a reduction in yield, and it was significant. So in 21, it went from 30 bushels, down to 28. 23 went from 35, almost 36 bushels down to 30 that year. So it's interesting to see that. Now you flip that on its head and you go into more of a wet year,
or
greater
ideal moisture conditions, or whatever.
Yeah, a little bit better moisture conditions, like in 22. Here's a good one. That 10 seeds, 5 pounds. We're up to 62 bushels versus 58 on the very low end. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of what we found, right?
That's wet, the trend.
Wet.
And if you can predict the weather, well, then you know how to seed. But until you can do that.
Okay, so this past year, 2025, how do you think the trials went this year? What won? The low seeding rate at 2.5 seeds, 1.3 pounds, or the high, over 5 pounds?
I think it's kind of funny how we've distinguished the different seeding rates, because like the normal seeding rate being the high seeding rate, that's the normal rate. But then the mid seeding rate at 2.5 pounds a acre. There's not too many people seed their canola at 2.5 pounds.
No.
Or the low seeding rate at 1.25 pounds. Like
that's kind of unheard of. I understand that. But within the parameters of this trial,
based on last year, we seeded, there was some moisture, and then we didn't get rain for 6 weeks. Oh man, it's tough to say, because then all of a sudden the tap turned on and things turned out to be pretty darn, like somebody was looking down from above on us last year to give us the crop that we actually got. I would actually have to say the higher seeding rate probably would have done better. That's my guess.
Based on the fact that we had moisture to support. And
just
it was
going
good
off
years, high yielding. Yeah. So 2025 canola seed rate trials. At the end of the day, so the 10 seeds, actually the high seeding had 64 bushel. Pretty good yield in general, I would say.
Yeah.
Then the mid actually had 65.2, which was significantly different. There was a significant difference there. So the mid, and then the high went down to 62.7. So again,
we're gonna have to amend our findings, where if you have a dry start to a year with a wet finish, the mid seeding rate actually does better. If it's dry, go with the low seeding rate. If it's wet, go with the high seeding rate. No, this is gonna get confusing.
What I really like about these trials, about this seeding rate trial, is because obviously we do a lot of other trials where we play with fertilizer. The fertilizer, where we place it, can affect our emergence and our plant count. And so it's not necessarily what the fertilizer, where that fertilizer is placed, but how it affected the plant count, the plant stand, which then, because we have this trial, we can say, well, actually, a lower plant stand produced higher, or a lower plant stand produced lower this year, right? And we can isolate that one factor when we're looking at the other fertilizer placement trials. So I think this is really neat. Yes, are we going to be able to say you should do this in these circumstances every year? Well, obviously not. But it was neat to see, because I would have bet anything going into the end of May, start of June, low seeding rate is going to be the winner, right? Because, and again, why does that happen? Well, when you have a lower seeding rate, you have bigger plants. There's more space.
More root mass.
They produce way more roots. Yeah. If you find a plant that's on its own versus one that's in a group of other ones, you pull them up, you can just see the difference instantly. And so with that larger root, it can just tap down into some moisture. Downfall of less plants though, longer maturity.
Yeah.
Right? Longer maturity. Weed competition is probably a little lower. Right? There's less plants, doesn't fill in as fast, and that's what takes longer, because it's got to branch out, and that's what gets into the maturity. So obviously some things that are not desirable, but heck, one thing I do know,
you could still grow a decent crop with not very many plants. That's what we found.
We'll call it the ultra low seeding rate. Yeah. Like that is 1.3 pounds. I don't know if anyone's doing that. Even the 2.5, 2.6 pounds. Like on the farm here, we're kind of almost like 3 pounds is kind of our average, right?
Yep.
And that's where we're more comfortable with. And like you said, now with your experience out there again, and probably not too many people seeding at that, I'll call in quotation, low of rate, the mid, right?
Yeah. But actually, I can honestly tell you, I've had to work with some customers with the drill that they have, knowing what I know now. I've actually actively encouraged them to cut their seeding rates down because they are actually throwing good money out the window. So
put down more, get less. That doesn't usually equate to a good ending.
And you know what? It was this. I can honestly say it was the exact same thing you and I went through, where we're going through these seeding rate trials. We're figuring a few things out, and then all of a sudden, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Well, let's start incorporating some of the results on the farm. You and I both didn't feel comfortable actually cutting our seeding rate down to 2.8 pounds the first year because, well, holy man, like doing it in a trial is one thing, but doing it across the farm. But we both agreed that that's what we're going to do. And
I felt like I was more comfortable than you were.
Yeah, I was a little nervous. I was a little, not going to lie. But you know what? After that, we got that under our belt. My comfort level is, I honestly feel comfortable advising people that.
Well, it's all there. And I think, people have seen it in the past, whether it was a frost event or like something happened or hail. It's like, oh, we should just leave it. And all of a sudden, oh, I got a heck of a good yield out of that. Right. And I think that is somewhat similar to this where you get forced into trying it. Maybe I force you to try it and then that's okay.
Well, I had some previous experience when we did that fall seeded canola trial. There's a research group out of Melfort that we did a fall seeded. This is going back like 25 or 30 years ago where we were dormant seeding canola and then trying to figure out whether that was an option for people. And, lots of times in the spring after several frosts, there wasn't a lot of plants left.
Right.
But there was obviously, we didn't know if we should spray the plots out or cultivate them out or leave them. But of course, if you're getting funded for it, you got to leave them. But like there were some times where it would be a large footstep between plants and it would turn out to be not bad. So
a large footstep between, 1.5 plants per square foot. Yeah, you're down to about a foot of each. Yeah. Okay. So what can we use this information for? On the wet and dry years, can we use that in a single year? And this is one thing that I actually played with this past year, where I said, okay, I don't know what the year is going to be, but I do know in my fields where there's drier areas and where there's wetter areas, right? We've got some undulating land out there. We use variable rate to identify those areas. How can we use this information in that case? And well, to me, it said, well, let's put down more seed in the wet areas to try to utilize that moisture to pump out the bushels. But in the dry areas, hilltops or maybe sandier land, however you have it separated out in the zones, I said, well, kind of two things on the go there. Well, we don't want to put more seed up there, even though the mortality rate is probably going to be higher. Right? Just not as nice of conditions to seed into. You're probably going to lose a few more plants here and there in those drier areas or hilltops. But almost cut back our seeding right there or keep it, kind of medium down, but then increase it in the low spots. And then on those drier areas, it'll naturally even go down less. Yeah. With the goal being that larger plants, bigger roots on the top, but also they take longer to mature. Then, right? And so it almost should even out your field because in the low spots, lots of plants, but there's just more moisture versus, if you've ever seeded just a flat rate across the whole board, you'll see your hilltops usually are going to be the most mature, right? They ran out of moisture. But if you had a high plant stand there and similar down to the bottom, well, that's where, we lower it down, branches out more, takes longer. Anyway, I thought that was the plan with this whole information. And I actually found out, we're still going through some of the data, call it, and overlaying it. But at the end of the day, I think that worked out pretty well.
It's a thing.
Yeah. And
it's a little bit different than what some people initially thought, though. Like it's a little bit counter to what some people were doing before.
Yes, because a lot of times, and I'd say in cereals more so, if you have a higher mortality in those less favorable growing conditions, but you want your plant stand to be equal across the board, well, then you increase your seeding rate in those less favorable conditions. Well, in this case, we're saying, no, actually, I think there's something to decreasing it in those. So you're right. It did kind of flip it on its head a little bit. But I think we provided a little bit of information on
the
why.
Controversy, Curtis.
Yeah. Well, no one knows
you controversial figure.
Yeah. We tried, like you said, we put our money where the mouth is and tried it out on the farm. And I think it worked actually quite well. Not saying that everyone has to go do that, but that's another thought and another reason, or another, using this information for a reason. I think that can be done in the year of application, right? It, like we said, the very first question I asked you, what's next year going to be like? I don't know. Like, who knows, right? But this should hopefully provide a little bit of insight into, what you can do with this information in this year. So Yeah, I think I'll kind of leave it on that one as far as an actual useful thing we did with it. Let's go back. Well,
How far back?
should we talk about singulation right now? Let's just touch on that real quick, because I would say in general, planters have kind of sizzled out a little bit. Western Canada, I would say back in 2020, 21, there was a bunch rolling around, and there is still some.
There was momentum that was going that direction, and that's why we tested out what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to see, right? And it wasn't to prove one way or the other. It was like, hey, we got to get on board with this if this is going to show up. And so I've got 20, 21, 22 canola results, singulation versus volumetric, in these 3 seeding rates, right? So we had the equivalent, 2.5 seeds. And that's why I talk about seeds, because with planters, they talk in seeds, which was equivalent, though, to like 1.2 pounds. And then we went up to 5 seeds, and then we went to 10 seeds. And we compared the volumetric to the singulation. And again, we used our air planter. So it was the same opener. It was the same fertility package. There was no like, okay, well, in a planter, we can't put down starter in the seed row. So we don't put any fertilizer in.
The only variable was the metering.
Was the metering. That's
Everything
right.
else was held constant. So it was like a very unique way of doing it.
Yeah. And was there some differences over the years on low versus high seeding rate? Yes. Was there big differences though? And I mean at all really between singulation and volumetric? Honestly, none. Yeah. No. Or very, very little. Very little. Mm-hmm. Now there are still some advantages, I would say, to the planters on the metering as far as maybe some turn compensation, or you don't have to worry about either as much the seed size. Like if you want to put down 150,000 seeds per acre, you're going to get 150,000.
I think that was the biggest learning experience for myself was even with bags of seed that are sized, the uniformity of the seed within that bag is not exactly.
Yeah, but did the actual spacing, within the canola make a difference there then, right? Singulated versus volumetric. And it comes back to our seeding rate trial where, if you have a very low seeding rate, it fills in space, right? So canola can adapt, I guess, at the end of the day. And I would say, yes. Was the singulated more even? Maybe a bit more of a picket fence? Yeah, definitely in the lower seeding rate. The mid, maybe you could see it. High.
But even then, like with canola itself, you get more of a picket fence with a crop like corn or beans. The seeds are bigger, and canola, as they come out of the meter, it's perfect. But with canola being such a small seed, big seeds and small seeds seem to, catch each other in the tube on the way down. So until you get down to the very low seeding rate, you don't really see that true picket fence type look like you do with corn and beans.
Yeah. And corn, we just know it makes sense. Like when they start to outcompete, they both lose, right? Versus canola, maybe one overtakes the other one, but it gets that much better. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. And again, where these seeding rates kind of provide a little bit more background information on some of these other trials. What about wheat? We did try wheat.
Wheat was very interesting. I have the vision in my head of actually driving across the field and spraying those plots because I always go perpendicular to the way they were seeded. Yeah. And like we did the low, the mid, and the high seeding rate.
Yeah, I think it went, so the low is 20 seeds, 30 seeds, and 40 seeds.
Yeah. So I know every year wasn't completely consistent, but I do know that the yield was fairly consistent. Didn't really matter whether you went the low rate or the high rate. The yield ended up being the same. The one interesting thing I did find just driving across and looking at it, every time you came across the 40 seed seeding rate, it would be pasted flat to the ground. Mm-hmm. So lodging was more of an issue with the higher seeding rate is what I found.
Yeah. Well, definitely in the combine and cutting it too. It was like, remember the one pass.
But it was interesting because like when you think about it, like there was definitely more tillering with the lighter seeding rate. But going over and above what, we were targeting 30 plants per square foot or 32 plants per square foot on the farm.
On the farm wise? Yeah. 30-ish. Yeah.
Going extra seeding over or more seed over and above that didn't really pay. It just caused more lodging.
But again, we wanted there to be, the reason that we moved to that is because
staging.
Yeah. We wanted everything to be in the same stage, one tiller or one main stem, maybe one tiller. Yeah. And then you can hit it with fungicide all at that
timing
stage.
Was way easier.
And that's what's always been preached and pushed. And there's probably merit to that.
I think there's merit in that.
But yeah, it just didn't really it didn't show up in the yield. It was crazy. Yeah. And in fact,
you get more of a yield response from row spacing than you do seeding rate.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we found.
Yeah, that's true. Narrower does seem to give a little bit of an edge. Not every year, but
more than not.
More than not. Yeah, that's right. Cool. Was there anything else on seeding rates you wanted to touch on? Both canola, wheat, anything else? Okay, I'll put this out there then. Last one on the canola seeding rate though. Our variety is getting better where we can reduce our seeding rate, but the plants themselves are just getting stronger, better, more capable of producing.
Well, they're getting better at fertilizer use efficiency of new hybrids.
Water use, maybe.
Water use seems to be better.
That could be another thing. I just wanted to throw into that there as well. But anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. Then we'll let everyone kind of mull over that a little bit. So thanks again, Jeff, for coming in, and I appreciate the insight there on some seeding rate stuff.
Always a pleasure, Curtis.
Thanks, Jeff.